Every society looks for a hero. Every society. I don't, I don't care which society you're talking about, but they look for heroes. To Ricky, to us, to a lot of us that remember Ricky and that work with Ricky, we think of a man that dedicated basically his whole body, his whole spirit, his whole feeling to the original people, the indigenous people of this island. And he wanted to see them, the indigenous people, not only recognized as a community, but also succeed in their own land.
A visionary unlike any other, Governor Ricardo Bordallo, fondly known as Ricky, was able to expand Guam's infrastructure and was a major player in the movement to re-evaluate Guam's political status and increase local autonomy, triumphing against the many odds, but his career in life abruptly ended in an unforeseen, terrible tragedy. Ricky was born on December 11, 1927, as the oldest son of Baltazar Bordallo, a prominent politician and businessman in the early 1900s, and Ricky would follow in his footsteps. Ricky's auto company, which he established in 1954, was the first Toyota distributor on Guam, allowing him to become one of the richest men on the island. In 1952, Ricky ran for the legislature, being the youngest person at this point to do so, and he was changing the game as he was the first to campaign using posters and pictures of himself. He lost, but finally won in 1956 when he began his long stay in the legislature. He believed it was important and beneficial for Guam to create a positive, close relationship with the US, and when he became Popular Party chairman, he made it a point to ensure this by securing affiliation with the National Democratic Party. This gave local leaders access to those in power federally, allowing for the introduction and passage of the Elective Governor Act, which allowed for Chamorros to elect their own governor as opposed to the president appointing it, and the Guam Congressional Representation Act, which created a delegate to Congress, although the delegate would not be able to vote. It was imperfect, but Ricky's efforts helped to somewhat rectify the tragedy of Chamorros being completely subjugated by the US. In 1970, he took his political career further by participating in the first gubernatorial election, which he lost, but in 1973 he was victorious. Ricky was immediately put to the test upon assuming the governorship. The economy he inherited was in terrible shape due to the Arab oil crisis, and he had to address a massive influx of thousands of Vietnamese refugees on the tiny island, coming as part of Operation New Life. It seemed things couldn't get any more complicated, but Super Typhoon Pamela struck, wiping out many farms, buildings, and homes. Through it all, Ricky's optimism allowed him to see new opportunities. With the hundreds of millions of dollars given by the federal government to rebuild, he practically redesigned the island.
Public health funding came from the panel of rehab. The the purchase of the hospital, that hospital that we're the GMH right now, that used to belong to the Catholic Church. It was rehab money that was used to buy that. The Port Authority of Guam was built with rehab money. Simon Sanchez High School was built with rehab money. George Washington High School was built with rehab money.
The development of the Tumon Bay area also began as part of this, and in later years it would become a hub for tourism, Guam's largest industry. Ricky's above and beyond mindset allowed Guam to emerge triumphantly from what could have been an enormous tragedy, but not all of his problems were solved, as many complained that he was overspending, didn't do everything he could to fix the economy, and had radical, impractical ideas.
And he was heavily criticized, for example, for being too much of an idealist, a visionary, because that was very much Ricky Bordallo. You know, he saw the big picture, the beyond the horizon. He dreamt about all these great things, and he was criticized for that by others who felt we needed somebody more practical, who's going to lower the price of gas, which kept going up, and cost of living and unemployment and things like that.
This caused him to lose to Republican Paul Calvo in 1976 when he ran for re-election. However, Calvo faced his own challenges and failed to deliver on his campaign promises, allowing Bordallo to make a comeback and triumph over him in 1982. Two of his major focuses this term were the Green Revolution and the political status movement.
That was Ricky, baby. Ricky, he actually believed and he thought that one of the key factors that would help Guam economically was the Green Revolution, to help to establish literally an agricultural base. And he not only helped the farmers, but he got into this tree planting, if you will, mode. I mean, when he planted personally, you know what manzanita trees are? He planted manzanita trees all over again.
He established the first Commission on Self-Determination, and it determined that Guam should pursue Commonwealth status. This would have increased local jurisdiction over matters such as immigration, military presence, and other issues, but it was not approved by Congress due to national defense interests.
I think that's where he caught the attention of the national government and concerns by the national government about this young governor that was sort of rattling the cage, as it were.
Ricky intended to run once more in 1985, but scandal spiraled out of control, ending his political career.
Much for joining us tonight. Well, the trial of the century is over. A jury has found former Governor Ricky Bordallo guilty on 10 counts of a 17-count federal corruption indictment.
A mere 3 days before the primary election, Ricky was indicted for 10 counts of corruption, such as kickbacks for government contracts. In response, he rejected the U.S., accusing them of racism and colonialism, and claimed that this indictment was a political lynching. He successfully portrayed the U.S. as corrupt, allowing him to win the primary election, but not the general. 7 more charges were made, bringing the total count up to 17, and several of his former associates testified against him in court and stated that he accepted bribes, but he countered that they were simply donations that he supposedly used for his campaign. Bordallo was sentenced to 9 years in prison and over $100,000 in fines and restitution, but in October 1988, an appellate ruling dismissed 8 out of the 10 charges, leaving 2 for which he had only been given probation. However, in 1989, District Attorney O'Connor successfully petitioned for Bordallo to be resentenced. Ricky lost his appeal and was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. To call Ricky's trial controversial is an understatement. Many believe it was an attempt by the federal government to remove Ricky from power, as his support for increased local authority was gaining ground, and that was no good for the administration that wanted to use Guam for military purposes. Yet others view it as simple justice.
It has nothing to do with politics, it has to do with America. The people have spoken through the jury, and they say no more corruption is acceptable. That's all that's going on here.
For those that believe that this trial was political sabotage, Ricky's trial can be seen as a power struggle between the federal and local government, where the federal government triumphed. Ricky would not go down quietly though. With his career tragically over and his ambitions shattered, Ricky made an unprecedented move that immensely shocked the island. Just hours before leaving for prison, Bordallo wrapped himself in a Guam flag and chained his body to the Chief Kapuha statue and shot himself in the head, ending his life. Given the theatrics, this was undoubtedly meant to be a political statement. Bordallo once admired Kapuha, who recognized the value of foreign relations as he did. Yet it is by his side where Ricky ended his life, in an act of defiance against colonialism. The last few years of his life were stained by tragedy, but in the eyes of many, he has a legacy of triumph rather than downfall, a testament to how successful he was as a leader. His memory would be cemented as the governor's office building was named after him. Many of his radical ideas that were once looked down on are hot topics today. What the Green Revolution tried to accomplish, today's farm-to-table movement attempts to do as well. And while most no longer consider Commonwealth to be a viable option, the fight to change Guam's political status is still strong. Even though he faced many criticisms, Ricardo Bordallo won many triumphs for Guam. He laid the foundation for Guam's future economic success and kick-started the movement to improve political status. His tragic demise serves as a reminder that Guam desperately needs to find its place in the world, and that Chamorros deserve self-determination. But his triumphs also serve as a reminder that such a thing is possible.